Hello and welcome to Dell's Gaming. I'm Dell and this is Kerbal Space Program, and we're actually with Ted Gunn at the moment. We're Tresella and I'm not sure who his other passenger is that we're heading back. We'll check on that in a minute. But we're looking out, ready for a launch from the Mun Taxi so we can drive all the passengers back to Kerbin. So we're just looking out on the Mun. So if we just go back and have another look. So the plan for this episode is basically to get the taxi back to Kerbin, but I want to do it a little bit more efficiently than I normally do. So let's just see who is actually aboard this ship as such. If we go to the transfer, we got Dorla, Tresella and Ted Gunn. So Ted Gunn is our pilot. Tresella is heading back with her scientific information she got from the surface of the Mun, and Dorla has decided to no longer be a pilot and is now classing herself as a tourist. So she's of no use whatsoever, so she's also heading back to the Mun. Now, rather than just a simple head back, which is nothing abnormal, what I want to try and do is make an efficient return using as little delta V as possible in total in the ship, and try to use some aerobraking around Kerbin to reduce the amount of delta V we need. Now the idea being that if I get this right, I can reduce the amount of fuel we initially need for return, which also means reducing the amount of fuel we need to get to the Mun, etc. And it means that the initial vehicle is a lot lighter, you know, just everywhere reducing that weight as much as possible. So we're having a look at what we have already on board on the ship. Now we need to just have a disconnect first of all from the main system so that we can get a true value of what our delta V is at the moment. So if I select an undock, we are now undocked. If I put the RCS on and give us a little backwards momentum just to get us away from there, that's cool. That's happy there with what's happening. So we're now with our pilots, and we got to see 1494 delta V available to us to get back to Kerbin, and that's based on a 401 fuel. But the delta V is the most important thing. Now we've got a couple of things we need to do to get us back to Kerbin. If I go to our star map, we have to do a capture of Kerbin, obviously. And I'll try and get us back. Now, because we don't do aerobraking, I'm not to guarantee getting actually back onto the Kerbal Space Center. We're just going to try and land close. Now, first of all, we've got to get out of the orbit. Now, we're most probably in just about the worst possible factor for getting out of Mun orbit, because we're in totally the wrong inclination. It'd be so much easier if we were in more of a parallel inclination, but that's fine because this will test how much delta V we would actually do require on this. Now normally the idea is you get somewhere which is around that half 50% mark, so we're going to take this as our starting point at the moment, and we'll create a maneuver node. Now the idea being is we're gonna set Kerbin as our target, and the idea is we're gonna try and come into an orbit around 68, between 65 and 68 kilometers altitude, and then do a number of orbits around Kerbin, each time getting a little bit lower, and our orbit getting a little less each time. Now, the Delta V I'm expecting, I'm going to leave a little bit around just for emergency use. What I'm expecting is our first pass will be quite fast and it will reduce a little bit, slowly, steadily going down, and we can use a little bit of fuel if we're getting too low, or a little bit of RCS, just to adjust our orbit each time to ensure we don't aerobrake too quickly. So monopropellant is going to be key on this. We do need still plenty of monopropellant, and I'm going with about half a tank, a little bit less than that, must be about 40% there. But we're going to try this. So I'll sort out the maneuver node, and once I've got that about right, we'll see what needs to be done next. And welcome back. And after a fair bit of jiggling around, did find a reasonable maneuver node, which is only using 340 Delta V to get within an initial 67, about 68k. But it's on a very wide ellipse, so I'm going to put a second node in, which is another 350 Delta V, just to bring our orbit down to 1.3. So it's going to be about 700 in total. So we're going to use that as a starting point. I think that will be a good burn. We'll use the flight controller and we'll see how that goes. If I need to do a corrective burn a bit closer, so be it. But we're going to go with this particular process with Ted Gunn in control and see how this performs. I've got some fuel available, some Delta V to do corrections if we're going in a little hot or I need to make last minute corrections. So fingers crossed, this should work as planned. And typically made a mistake in that I forgot to activate the ruddy engine, so we're going to have to do this on the next orbit. So I'm going to have to rearrange this particular maneuver node to say to rerun on the next orbit and just do some changes. So back in a minute. And Ted Gunn has programmed the computer and is ready to perform the maneuver. So, and the engine is enabled this time. So he flicked the right switch. So there we go. Flight computer is running the program which has been input, and we're going to see if what that does for us. So we're using, it was about just a few minor corrections after I'd done that first maneuver, after I mucked up and forgot to enable the engine. The reason for the disabled engine is whenever I go onto the station, I do disable the engines. That's been a standard process. Just earlier when I was mucking around, going through the IVA views, I accidentally pressed the Z key. Now, if any of the engines were enabled, that could have caused a big truck catastrophe. So always disable the engines when in the station. So let's see how we're doing. Our fuel, we're good on fuel. Still got plenty of Delta V available to us. That's coming to an end, and there we go. Right, so if we now look at what our situation will be when we get to Kerbin. Now I'm getting this little halo effect, possibly because of one of the graphical enhancements, so excuse that. So our current planned periapsis here, oh, it's directly above Kerbin, the Space Center, is 62, so that's a little lower than I would like. So we will give, so what I'm going to do is have a little burn just before we get into orbit, just to increase that up to the 68 again. So we'll put a little maneuver, say about halfway, just to give just raise that just up to the 68, which is, I think, my preferred entry point. So what we got, that's 82, that's a little too much. 68, I just want to be a little bit down from that. Yeah, so that's going to be our next maneuver node that we will perform, or Ted Gunn will program the computer for, which is going to be in some time. And then what we will then do is this maneuver here, which will spend about 350 delta V to bring us to about 1 million mile sub-orbit, and we'll see how we go from there. We don't want to go too hard. Yeah, that's a 400. That's 400 delta V, just about. We'll give it a little bit more. There we go. So we'll perform that one second, and then we'll start aerobraking from that point, and we'll see how the aerobraking goes. Yeah, we might be able to increase that. This is a conservative aerobraking maneuver just at this time. So I'll fast forward this, and hopefully you'll see us in orbit around Kerbin. And we're coming in quite nicely, just at the edge of the atmosphere in Kerbin. Very fast at 3000, but we're about to do our retro burn, which will put us into a reasonable orbit without to allow us to do some more aerobraking after that. Problems I did have is battery. The solar panels are not in a great position, so on the way in we've run out of battery power. So at the point where I was supposed to do the burn, it would not do it automatically, and I had to manually do the burn. So I might have to readjust the solar panels to put some facing forward, because it was heading straight into the sun. There was getting no power, so I might have to put some up on this command module, and maybe 1 or 2 on the rear, just to make sure it doesn't run out of power like that again in the future. But that's a minor. Or we might have to put solar panels. The only problem with the solar panels is they will blow up on the re-entry. So there we go. Here's our burn to put us into about a 1.1 million apoapsis. So it's also reducing our periapsis a little bit on this, which is fine. I'm going to take over manually there, because I thought it was going wrong actually, but it was okay. So I'm just going to have to do this, eyeball this a little bit more manually than I was expecting. I didn't think it was on the prograde marker, but I think it was. It just seemed our periapsis seemed to be going down a lot lower than I wanted. But that's fine. We'll see how this performs. I can always bring our periapsis up again when we hit our apoapsis. Okay, so our apoapsis is 1.17. Now I'm just going to set this, basically I'm going to take off this now. We're going to let Ted Gunn control this from now on. Whoops, that's the wrong one. T. So he's just going to basically stay on our retrograde. So we're coming in at 64k, and we're just going to keep our rear facing each time. Now if we look here, what should be happening, and I don't know if our trajectory is working on this particular version. No, possibly, I think trajectory is possibly not working anymore. But anyway, as we come round, we should find that our each time we come round, our apoapsis will reduce a little bit, and our periapsis will reduce a little bit. Now, our next time around, we're coming around at 64k, so we will see. Now, I do have to run this in real-time mode, so what I'll do is I'll fast forward it around to close to the periapsis, and then we run the aerobraking, and then fast forward it again. So we'll see, and each time we come round a little bit in the atmosphere, it will drop the height a little bit every time, and that is the intention anyway. So this is our first time round. We've just gone into the atmosphere, and we're pitting at 64.5 kilometers up. And we should get some aero braking hopefully soon, just to start reducing. You can see our apoapsis is reducing slightly on this time round. It's only minor, but it's a slight reduction. We haven't gone to the first few times around. The amount of aero braking you get is going to be minor to a degree. Hopefully we'll get more as we get into the thicker parts of the atmosphere, but at this moment we are still going very fast, so we don't want to go down too fast. So this will be a number of orbits. So this is orbit number 1. I'll fast forward it through a few of the other orbits, just because obviously we don't need to see all of them. And as Ted Gunn brings in the taxi for another aero braking, we're just hitting the 1,000 kilometer mark on the apoapsis. So that's reduced down from the 1,190 I think it started at. Now this is after about 11 orbits, so I was a little conservative with our coming in at 65k, but as you can tell we've also dropped about a kilometre on our periapsis, and each time we go round we're shaving a little bit more off of that apoapsis height. So it's going to be a few more rotations, but the system is working. I think if we came in lower initially, would have been too fast and just burnt up, especially with the new heat dynamics in the game. We don't want to come in too hot. At the moment we're getting some skin temperature, but still plenty within levels, but it's going to be getting a little hotter as we get a little lower. So I'll start again, move forward until we get to that lower point where we're, pushing the envelope, shall we say. It has taken quite a bit of time to get here, but as the sun comes over the horizon, Ted Gunn and the crew in the taxi are now finally officially suborbital. Both the apoapsis and the periapsis are both below 70k now, so it's no longer a matter of if they're going to land, only a matter of where. Now it's taken about 60 orbits to get to this stage, which luckily for me I had another machine I could work on, and I just came over here and gave it a speed up when I could, time warp when it was possible, but it's generally gradually been pulling it down till it's almost in an orbital sort of style. It was slow, and most people would not have the patience to do this, and I haven't used any fuel whatsoever since I started this aerobraking. I could and potentially have used some either RCS or liquid fuel just to speed this up if there was some available, but the test was to see whether I could do this with minimal fuel usage, and I've shown I can. Things I'm possibly doing in the future is I started this at about 65k, could potentially come down to 62, maybe 60k, needs a bit of testing. Primary part was heat I was looking at, and on the first couple of runs were key when I was fastest, and the temperature at that was a maximum of about 360 degrees. So I've got a little bit of leeway there, potentially. Why is this important? Well, it's all a matter of weight, and space is all a matter of weight. I'm just looking now where we're going to land. It looks like I don't want to land in the night time if I can help it, but we might not have much choice unless we get a bit of slowing down now and land. Definitely don't want to land in night time if I can help it, but we could always use a bit of fuel just to give us that little extra dip down. I think this will potentially come down somewhere over here, I'm guessing. If we just see how this works out. This land, there's a lot of hills there that I definitely don't want to be part of, so we'll see how it goes. I'll use, if I was doing this, I could use some RCS, etc., just to accelerate that descent at this last point. Okay, before I go any further, what I was saying is, why is this important? Well, it's important because every bit of fuel you use or bring back is weight that has to be stopped on landing. So if I can land with a lighter load, then everything works backwards to be lighter. So the fuel tank would be lighter, less fuel in the fuel tank. I would need less fuel in my RCS tanks. So that would also then mean less parachutes needed, which in the end, all that weight means less fuel for even doing the earlier items, such as getting into the orbit of the Mun in the first place. So all of these areas are adding to the reduction in weight. All of that weight reduction means that I can have less fuel and a smaller to get us to the Mun in the first place, and hence a smaller vessel to actually get us into orbit of Kerbin at the very start. So we've got a lot of items which are all contributing to really making the vessel smaller, lighter and less fuel. At the moment we've got, let's see, where are we? We are 9.8 thousand kilos of vessel. So if I can reduce that significantly, and that's taking 8 parachutes, and we've got 4 RCS, so if I can find anywhere to reduce all of those sizings and components, we can reduce that 9.8 to down considerably. The other part we've got remaining 750 delta V, and we only used 800 delta V to get here. So again, theoretically, we could reduce the fuel usage for getting back from the Mun by half. At least, in actual fact, it would be less than half, because once we've reduced the weight of the overall vehicle, the actual amount of fuel required for that same 800 delta V will be reduced. Now, so it's the next stage, once we have landed this, in the next time I take the taxi up, is to reduce the size of it and see how small we can make it, and still have it as a vehicle that will land properly and still come into, get around the Mun, the dock, etc. Right, let's see where it's saying we're going to be landing. Yeah, I think I'm going to be about right. I think it's going to be about possibly just before there, in this sort of area. I think we're going to land in water by the looks of it. Where is our ship at the moment? Okay, we're there at this time. So yeah, I reckon it's going to be around this area, which will be fine. Trajectory is not working at the moment, so I can't get any items from that. Our temperatures, let's see, we've got 2000 K. We're doing okay as far as temperatures go. So we've now just got a standard landing. So it could be interesting, how small can I make this vehicle? which is going to be a interesting idea. Some of it is just taking time and patience, working on the maneuver nodes to reduce that amount to get from Mun to Kerbin. That I reduced that down to, it was actually about 401 I think I ended up, and 400 burn around Kerbin to get the orbit. So it was 800 in total, give or take a little bit just for docking and other bits. So we need about 900 delta V to 1000 delta V. But one thing I was thinking is, if I have it as 800, it can always refill at the station once it gets to the station. So we fill it up with 800 to get to the station, and then it just tops its tank off before it returns back. We also get some delta V from the monopropellant. They also can act to help slow it down or get it into the correct attitudes and orbits. Right, let's see where we are. We're going to be coming in for a nice sea landing by the looks of it. I think there was maybe a little bit of land there, but I don't think we're going to be anywhere near that. I think it's definitely going to be a sea landing near the coast. But hopefully, yeah, it's near the coast there maybe, but hopefully in the water. The water one's easier. I haven't got to worry about the angle or terrain, etc. Don't have to deploy the landing legs, just land as it is. It should bob upright, hopefully, and nothing gets damaged. So we're just coming on that last little bit. Coming through, there we go. Ted's done a good job holding the trajectory. I just keep him on a retrograde. I got that so wrong on the other video, but a retrograde all the way through, just to make sure everything stays nice and in the right place. So we're just waiting for the speed to come down so it is safe to launch the parachutes. They're still unsafe at the moment, so we just got to wait for them to say it's risky. Safe. Okay. We are deploying chutes. Right, where are we landing? Right, straight through some clouds, so I can't see where we're going to land. But hopefully, looking at the map, I think that's in the water, so that's fine. Shouldn't have to do any corrective measures just to get us through this last stage. So Ted can just take us down. Yeah, there's a nice, I can see water down there. That looks fine to me. The ships will be, and helicopters will be heading this way. We'll just push it down that last little bit. Oops, sorry. Can't walk that fast. Don't need the thermal. We'll look at the vessel. So we're down to 9.8. Yep, that's cool. I haven't tried a landing in the sea with the new water physics, so I don't know if it's going to have an effect. I'm hoping that this will be a nice soft landing. We're at 6 meters a second at the moment. So again, we could reduce, either have an even softer landing or reduce our parachutes and have a lighter weight. I think in general 8 meters a second is okay. I would like to have it a little bit lower if possible. As I said, I have got a lot of patience, which is good for this game, really. I like the water update. It actually looks like water rather than just a big bit of blue. So graphically it's looking much better in this game at the moment. We've got a little bit of sideways velocity, I think. There we go. Everyone is down. So if we just recover vessel. So we had quite a bit of science. We had 188 science on board the vessel there, with some bits we carried back from the temperature scans, EVAs, and some, as well as the actual flight itself. So that was always good. Obviously the parts were refunded, so we got a good level of parts back to us as well, and the crew got some XP. So Tresella got a good 7 XP. Ted's got a little bit more, and even Dorla got some XP, and our reputation went up significantly. Now, with any luck, I'm hoping that that contract got taken, got sorted out. Let's see. That's not that one. Trying to find the right vessel now. Perform experiments to the way of Midlands. Situation landed. Okay, well, it hasn't. We've done that. The EVA report, I thought we had brought them all back, but for whatever reason it has not given us that particular item. Maybe they are stuck on the science lab at the moment, but I thought they were the ones that I just returned from that situation, but potentially it didn't. That's a very annoying. We got the temperature scan, we recovered with Tresella, so we just need to do those crew reports. Okay, that's annoying. Obviously something missing. We'll have to look at that separately. I'll possibly do that as a separate little job. We've done that. We've done the basics of that. I'm not going to repeat the whole mission once again. Tresella went there. We'll just do possibly the try doing the EVA and crew report from that place on a quick little mission. Next on I'm going to be looking at is some drones, because I want to start looking at the base for mining fuel and setting up a base on the Mun. To do that, a couple of things I need. One is I need to find a good place where there's some good ore, and in that area I want to find a flat surface so I can land easily, put the base items up, and start building what we need in that area. To do that, I'm going to look at doing some sort of automated drones, i.e. potentially not crewed, just, you know, a octo with some wheels, very basic, that we can drop on the Mun at some strategic points, and they can just drive around and look for some more data. So that will potentially be the next stage. I might also work on a rover which is manned as well, because we may need that, but we'll look at that when it comes to closer to actually working on the base itself. First of all, I need to just get the probes, unmanned probes, to the Mun so that they can start investigating. So any good ideas, please leave them in the comments below. If I've missed anything, again, put them in the comments below. Hopefully that was... I enjoyed that. It took a long time, but it proved that I can do aerobraking back to the Kerbin, even if you're very short of fuel and you haven't got enough to put yourself in an orbit. You know, if you get your heights right, you can bring yourself back down again, even if you run out of fuel. You don't need to do it in one shot. You can use the aerobraking. You just have to be a bit careful. Don't go too low. It's better to have patience than dead Kerbals. I don't know, some people like to kill Kerbals, and I've done it myself, but I think it's better to try to make them survive if possible. So, until next time, click that like button. Let me know of any other ideas, etc., especially for bases. I'm looking at either a modular base or a really big single item. I haven't worked out what may be the best option at this moment. I'm thinking maybe semi-modular, looking through, so I've got to put some design work into that, but that's going to be a little bit down, because first of all I've got to get my science up. I have to get the probes to the Mun, and there's also a few other contracts I need to get sorted out, such as it needs a space station around Kerbin and a few other bits and pieces. So we've got a few areas that need to be looked at this moment, but as always, until next time, have fun.